Hey everyone, me again. So I've done a few videos on aftermarket magazines for military surplus firearms already. These videos didn't prove to be terribly popular, which is just fine by me. That's not really the purpose anyways. The purpose is just to get information out there that somebody might find useful. So I figured I'd do another one today, this one on the SVT-40. So these original magazines, like this one, they tend to be fairly hard to find, at least in good condition, and very expensive. We're talking something that's going to be well into the hundreds to get one of these typically. I mean, unless you get lucky or something like that. So there is an aftermarket option. This is more like $60. You can find them on eBay. There's a website called Waffenmeisters that sells them. There's probably a couple of other places where you can get them as well. So I figured I'd, test it out, try it out, see if it's any good. Now, in terms of their construction, they're actually very, very similar, as you can already see. The differences between them are really quite subtle as far as I can tell. So, for example, again, this one here is the original. We can see that the aftermarket one has these spot welds that you don't see on the original. If we look at the magazine follower, the piece that kind of interfaces with the bolt hold open, it's shaped a little differently on the aftermarket one than it is on the original. Other than that, there's really not too much difference. Of course, the originals are going to be serialized and sometimes even re-serialized in order to match. There are no markings at all on the aftermarket option. In terms of fit, it actually fits in very solidly. Like there's just pretty much no wobble whatsoever in either direction, front to back, not side to side. Pretty much just as good as the original in this regard. So definitely positive in that regard. It also does lock open successfully on the empty. So on the surface, it seems like it's actually a pretty functional replacement. The problem we start running into, of course, is in its functionality. So to start off, of course, I loaded it with 5 rounds. I was using tool ammo, not that it really matters all that much, just to see that it would work at all. It ran perfectly fine, locked open without a problem. So I figured I'd load another 5 in there. It ran perfectly again the second time as well. Then, of course, I figured, okay, it seems like we are off to a good start. I loaded it with the full 10 this time around. And again, it ran perfectly fine without issue. So I figured, okay, well, let's do another 10. And this is where I ran into the kind of spontaneous disassembly, if you will. Right on the very last round, it basically all fell apart. And when we compare side by side with the original, this is the original, we sort of see, or rather definitely see, what kind of went wrong. So on the floor plate, we kind of see this rivet or stud or whatever it is. And there's underneath the floor plate, there's another plate that's attached to the magazine spring, and there's a hole in that this kind of locks into. And it appears as though on the aftermarket, that rivet seems to have shorn off or just fallen off somehow, just must not have been on there very well. And so once that breaks, the floor plate comes, as you can see, it shifts back and forth very, very easily. And so under recoil, obviously, what ended up happening was we kind of saw it falling apart like it did. So unfortunately, I can't really recommend this, even though it's, several times cheaper probably than the original. It's still not cheap. I mean, we're talking $60. That's quite a lot for a magazine. And there's at least some kind of quality problem with it. I did reach out to the seller that I bought this from to see if maybe they could send me a replacement floor plate or something like that. I don't know if I would trust it even with that replaced. But nonetheless, it's really too bad because it was actually feeding perfectly. It fits well. Didn't encounter any issues until this particular piece right here made itself known. So that's kind of it, unfortunately. Yeah, what can I say? Thank you for watching, as always.